Hello and welcome to High Caliber TV, your source for figure and model updates every Wednesday and Friday. So today on Workbench Wednesday, I'm going to be looking at the Abrams, the oil and enamel washing process. So as you can see, all the pigments are on, and the filters, etc., whatever you want to call them, are complete now. And I sealed it all in with a combination of matte varnish and future floor wax, and then let that sit overnight, so it is very, like, it has a real luster to it, which is a bit off-putting when you first see it. But the really cool thing about this is, and I hope it comes out in the camera, is that all that work that went into it, the variation, the everything from the counter shading up till now, you can now see, which when I was looking at it before, especially that back deck area, when I was looking at it before I sprayed this all, it was starting to look very monochromatic, which is realistic, but it's also boring to look at. So I'm really happy with the way that's coming out. And so just stick around, and I'm going to show you the follow-on process. Very similar to what I did with the LAV, but we'll see where this goes. So we're back, and what I've done is I've taken the oils, as you can see on my makeshift cardboard palette there, taken them with an old brush and just daubed them on, favoring the light ochre and the it's just sort of a yellow. I don't really have a preference for oil paints because I don't think that what I use them for is especially delicate. That may change as I get more practice, but as you can see, I favored the really dark colors on the inner ring where the turret will be covering, just so that it's a bit darker in there, as you can see. And then the yellows and the browns on the back deck and on the front hull, with some black and dark brown mixed in as well in those areas, just to sort of give it a little bit of variation. Reds, greens, and blues were also used, but extremely sparingly, because I noticed when I did them on the LAV, and that has a very rich green to it, that it changed the color in a way that I'm not sure I really liked. And especially with this being just like tan, it was going to look, it would have looked quite odd to have a red hue in a certain area, and yeah, noticeable in a bad way, basically. So we're gonna go on with mineral spirits and do the blending, and then we'll be back. So here we are, and as you can see, the oil rendering has done its job. Everything looks a little bit more saturated, a little bit more rich. The only problem is that one of the manufacturers, I'm not going to say which, but the stuff dried as hard as a rock, and I don't know if it was intended to do that or if I got a weird batch, but when I put the oil, mineral spirits on, it blended everything together perfectly. And then there were these little, they're sienna is the color. That doesn't even look like sienna, that looks black to me. But fortunately I only put it all around the inner ring and the occasional dot on the open areas. And what's most fortunate about this is that I just completely forgot to use it on the turret, so the turret is complete except for the streaking. So what Alan has suggested that I do, and I'm working on that now, is freeze or chill a straight razor blade, and then I'm gonna get underneath some of these dots and try and clear them away, sort of surgically, more or less. And then he said that if there's any remaining defects, I can just put some paint in as sort of a body fill, and then sand it right down, and it'll just be some more odd random variation. But the really fortunate thing about having the stuff on the inner ring here is when the turret's on and it's twisted the way it's going to be in the final version, is that you don't actually see any of this because it's underneath the big sort of horizontal cheeks of the Abrams turret. So yeah, so other than this predictably random snafu just at the very twilight of the project, this tank is getting along really well. And what I was going to do, which will be for the next video, is I was going to seal it all in and then over top of that we do the vertical streaks with some, I think it's AK MIG ammo and just some more oil paint stuff, and do the vertical streaks, and then it would be done. Oddly enough, it's been so long that I've been plugging away at this thing, but it's coming together really, really well. For my first armor build, I'm really, really excited about how this is going to look on the base with the figures and all the garbage that's on the base. And so now, while I wait for the blade to chill, I'm going to move on and start working on the finishing touches on the base. So stick around for that. So here we have the vehicle post repairs. As you can see, all the black dots are gone. What they've been replaced with are scars. Here, here, and in this area here. You can see where I had to hand paint and then blend everything back in with pastels, and it came out relatively well. Luckily for me, this is just monochromatic, and you know, it can be dirty. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, the paint, the reason why it didn't come off with the mineral spirits was because it was water-based. It was a watercolor. And had I known that before, obviously I wouldn't have gone at it with a knife. But yeah, it just, for some reason I touched one of the droplets with a wet brush, just by accident I guess, and it came away right away. So immediately I knew that I hadn't picked up the oil bottle, I picked up the watercolor bottle. So anyway, that was one of those foolish mistakes. It didn't ruin it, however. There's still some scars here that I haven't really bothered to take care of, just because the way the turret sits, it covers so much of the horizontal surface here. So anyway, it's basically ready to move on to the next progression, which will be vertical, oil, and enamel lines. And then once that's complete, we'll move on to the pin wash, sort of the panel line accentuating process with oils again. So yeah. So here we have the evolution of the turret, where it's at now. Just before the wash, the stowage is basically all on. I decided to go a little bit light. I've seen various reference photos where the stowage sort of starts here and creeps all the way up to the cupolas, you know, cardboard boxes and things like that. I decided to sort of go a bit lighter on that. But what we have here that I mainly wanted to talk about was the tarp. And it had begun as an aerial recognition panel, but then once I sort of worked it out, it was far too large. Like, I was looking through my sources and all that, and it was too big. So I figured it would be a civilian tarp, just something that they picked up at the base and tossed over the back to protect the stowage relatively from the conditions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a better tutorial on how to make tarps a little later on. But basically, I took just Kleenex, cut it to a variable, sort of like a regular size, folded the edges so that you couldn't see the tears, because Kleenex it's weird, it doesn't tear, or it doesn't cut, it rips. And then we drew it through a shallow basin that had a mixture of water and a very little amount of Carpenter's white glue. Placed it on, sort of tugged at the corners a little bit to give it some weight, and gave it 24 hours. It hardened up, and you get all these really cool, natural looking folds. Then I painted it up, gave it some dry pastels, and it's done. Really a cool, easy thing to do to add some life to your AFVs or your vignettes or what have you. I really, really like how that turned out. So yeah, on the next tutorial, Workbench Wednesday thing, like I said in the last segment, I'll be talking about the vertical lines and accentuating the panels. Thanks so much for watching. Check us out at highcaliberminiatures.com. Links in the description below as always. Check us out at Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter for daily stock updates and Workbench stuff. And thanks again to everyone on YouTube who subscribes and hits the like button and stuff. And for everyone who I've spoken to about camo patterns and Abrams and stuff like that, as I'm in no way an expert. I really do appreciate it. I think I've said this before, but I'll just reiterate it. Everyone seems to think, or some people who I speak to on the internet, in the community, seem to think that they're bothering me. It seems like that, like they don't want to, you know, take up my valuable time, and there's air quotes around that. But I really do like chatting about this sort of stuff and about what people are working on. The YouTube thing, you know, it's not monetized. I don't make money off of the YouTube videos. They're just sort of there so I can show off, you know, what I'm working on, and be a bit of have a bit of a larger footprint in the modeling community. Sort of get the word out there about HCM whenever I can. So yeah, I do appreciate it. You know, I like chatting. So the PMs, personal messages, and the emails that I get I do appreciate it. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time.